Martin Richardson is in the Red Sea, and there's blood in the water. His blood. A mako shark has already hit him twice. The second bite takes a piece clean out of his upper arm. 5 pints gone. He stops fighting. He said afterward he was waiting to die, and I believe him, because that's usually the moment right before something changes. Something does. 3 shapes move in through the red water. Fast, tight, deliberate. Not sharks, dolphins. They circle him, again and again, and the mako backs off.
Richardson survives. And here's the question nobody's answered cleanly in 30 years of arguing about it.
What did that cost them?
The easy answer is coincidence.
Nobody wants to be the person who believes a dolphin loves them. That's an easy way to sound foolish at a dinner party. So science has a default setting for stories like this one. Wrong place, wrong time, a wild animal doing something wild that has nothing to do with you. And for a while, that default held up fine. A shark bleeding into open water is a shark other animals want gone, whoever it's biting. A mother whale charging toward a diver might just be protecting her calf. The diver's simply standing in the blast radius of someone else's instinct. But here's the problem with settling for coincidence. Evolution isn't generous. It doesn't pay an animal to burn energy, or risk a predator's teeth, for a creature outside its own species. Not unless there's something in it for the one doing the saving. A gene that says, help strangers, at real cost to yourself, for nothing back, shouldn't survive 1 generation. It definitely shouldn't keep showing up, in dolphins off 4 different coastlines, in dogs pulling people out of burning houses, in whales that seem to place themselves, on purpose, between a human and danger. So either all of this is coincidence, stacking improbably on top of more coincidence, or something is actually happening, behind the eyes, when one animal sees a different kind of creature in trouble. Something that looks uncomfortably like caring. Scientists wanted to know which. And, this is the part people don't expect, they didn't start with dolphins, or dogs. They started with the one animal nobody has ever accused of having a heart, the rat. In 2011, a graduate student named Inbal Ben-Ami Bartal, working with Gene DeCidi and Peggy Mason at the University of Chicago, built a small plastic tube. Inside it, 1 rat. The tube had slits cut down the sides, so the trapped rat could be seen, heard, even smelled, but not touched, not helped. Not unless the second rat, roaming free in the arena outside, worked out how to force the door open from the outside. Nobody trained it to do that. Nobody showed it how. And yet, over days of circling, biting at the plastic edges, pressing its whole body against the tube, most of them figured it out anyway. 23 of 30 rats became reliable door openers. It took them, on average, 6.9 days. Compare that to the control groups, where the tube held an empty space, or a stuffed toy rat instead of a real one. Out of 40 of those animals, only 5 ever opened anything. So that's clue 1.
The free rat wasn't reacting to a shape.
It was reacting to distress. Then the research made it harder, almost cruel, honestly. They gave the free rat a second tube, this one full of chocolate. A rat's favorite thing on this earth, probably. It could have opened that tube, eaten alone, and walked away satisfied. Instead, it opened both, and it left some chocolate behind for the rat it had just freed. Nobody made it share. It just did. Around the same time, on a completely different branch of the family tree, researchers started asking the same question about the animal already living in our houses. Emily Sanford, then at Macalester College, ran an experiment that got nicknamed, half-jokingly, Timmy's in the Well. Owners sat behind a closed door, sometimes crying, sometimes just humming, calm as anything. And researchers timed exactly how fast the dog worked to reach them. The mechanism keep landing on in rats, in dogs, maybe in dolphins too, has a name, emotional contagion. It's the same wiring that makes one crying baby set off every other baby in the room within about 4 seconds. The theory goes that an animal watching distress up close doesn't just observe it from a safe distance. It catches it, like a cold. And ending the other creature's suffering becomes, in some small tangled way, a means of ending its own. Which would mean Martin Richardson's dolphins weren't performing an act of charity at all. They were just trying to make something painful stop. His pain and theirs, knotted together, indistinguishable in the water. Here's where it stops being simple. Because in 2020, a researcher named Joshua Van Borg at Arizona State ran a version of the dog experiment that complicated everything Sanford's work seemed to suggest. 60 pet dogs, 3 separate tests. In one, the owner sat inside a box and called for help. In another, the owner just sat there, reading calmly out loud, no distress at all, and in a third, no owner, just food, high-value treats, sealed in the same box. The dogs opened the box for a stressed owner about as often, and about as fast, as they opened it for the treats. Sit with that for a second. If rescue is driven by pure empathy, by genuinely wanting someone else's suffering to end, you'd expect it to look different from wanting a snack. It didn't. Van Borg's own conclusion was careful, not damning. He suggested rescuing an owner might just be rewarding to a dog, in roughly the same neurological sense that food is rewarding. Not necessarily selfless. Maybe not even about the owner's pain at all.
The Dolphins have their own version of this problem, actually.
Mike Heithaus, a biologist at Florida International University who studies exactly these cases, points out that a dolphin doesn't need to understand human vulnerability to react to blood in the water. It just needs to know a shark is close. And if that dolphin has a calf nearby, its priority was never Martin Richardson. It was its own kid. He may have simply been standing in the safest possible spot at the safest possible second by total accident. So maybe there's no love in any of this. A rat that wants a job finished, a dog that wants a treat, a dolphin protecting its own family and nothing else. 3 selfish little engines, all wearing the same heroic costume. That would be the tidy ending. Structurally satisfying, forgettable in about a week, except it doesn't actually end there. In 1992, off the Turks and Caicos Islands, a wild bottlenose dolphin named JoJo was doing what he'd already been doing for most of a decade. Trailing boats, shadowing swimmers, living some strange in-between life between open ocean and human company that nobody had trained into him. That day, a marine biologist was in the water, and a hammerhead shark started circling her. Not passing through. Circling. JoJo didn't circle her for comfort. He went straight at the shark, charged it, again and again, putting his own body between the hammerhead's teeth and hers, vocalizing the entire time until it finally gave up and left.
JoJo has at least 3 confirmed rescues to his name.
Nobody trained a single one of them into him. You could still call that instinct, technically. A hammerhead threatens a dolphin too, so maybe JoJo was just clearing his own territory, and the woman happened to benefit. Fine. Try that argument on Che. Che was an older, fluffy dog living with his owner, Andrea Bulott, in a Philadelphia row house. No working smoke detector in that building. Somewhere in the middle of the night, fire broke out, and Che started barking, which, according to neighbors, he never did, not like that, not at that hour. They heard it. They called 911. By the time firefighters got inside, both Che and Bulott were unconscious. And here's the detail that doesn't fit any treat-seeking, reward-chasing, self-interested theory anyone's built so far. Firefighters found Che lying directly on top of her, not beside her, on her chest. Bulott suffered burns across half her body. Che didn't have a single burn. There was no box to open for a snack, no calf to protect, no shark to chase off for his own survival. Just a dog and a fire, and, if you can even call it a decision, something in him that put his own body between the flames and hers. Maybe it's instinct. Maybe it's some old wiring, built over 15,000 years of dogs sleeping beside us, that just fires when the person he loves stops moving. Maybe someday a lab finds the exact mechanism, the way Bartol found the rats, the way Van Borg found the treats. But naming the wiring doesn't make what Che did less true.
It just means we're finally starting to understand how devotion gets built into a body. He didn't check if it was worth it first. He was already lying down.
So go back to Richardson, still in the water, 3 dolphins moving around him like a wall that shouldn't exist. Maybe it's emotional contagion. Maybe there was a calf nearby that had nothing to do with him at all. Maybe, somewhere in a dolphin's brain, his distress and its own distress got so tangled together that helping him was the only way to make the feeling stop. None of that actually answers the real question, though. Not really. You can explain the mechanism of a thing, the wiring, the chemistry, the 6.9 days it takes a rat to learn a door, without ever explaining why the wiring survived at all. Why it kept getting passed down, generation after generation, when a colder, more selfish version would have worked exactly as well. Maybe saving you doesn't require an animal to understand that you can die. Maybe it only requires that your pain looks, to them, close enough to their own. And maybe that's worth sitting with tonight. Not whether it counts as love exactly. Just that something out there, without language, without a reason it could ever explain to you, chose to stand between you and the dark anyway. Something crossed over.